Ms. Secretary, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us in this very special room to do something special, to be sure. First of all, to welcome the family here, to Gary and Jennifer, and especially to young Troy. It's great to have you, and to the rest of the family that's here. Again, this is really about your grandfather, but it's about you as a family, and this is the conclusion of a very important chapter in the legacy of the Powers clan. So it's wonderful to have you here. And we have some others here as well I should recognize. Mr. and Mrs. Carl Overstreet are here, and this is an aviator of some reputation who accompanied Gary Powers on the first sortie over the Soviet Union so many years ago. And likewise, I think Colonel Retired Chuck Wilson is here in the room. Sir, welcome. U2 alumni, as many of the folks here in the room are today. Former commander, it's great to have you here as well. Thank you. And we're all here, actually, to celebrate the heroic actions of Captain Gary Powers. At the height of the Cold War, ladies and gentlemen, the nation called upon extraordinary men like Captain Powers to undertake the most sensitive and dangerous missions. And there are some here, too, who I will not name, who it's especially meaningful that you're here, sir. Thank you. But today it is my honor to posthumously award Captain Gary Powers the Silver Star for his heroic action and his loyalty to the United States of America during a pivotal time in our nation's history. Established on July 19th, 1932, the Silver Star is the third highest combat military decoration that can be awarded to a member of the branches of the armed services for valor in the face of an enemy and for extraordinary heroism. Captain Powers earned this Silver Star while serving with the Joint United States Air Force Central Intelligence Agency U-2 Reconnaissance Squadron from May 1960 until February 1962. And during a reconnaissance mission over the Soviet Union, Captain Powers was shot down on May the 1st, 1960, and subsequently spent 21 months in a Moscow prison. For nearly 107 days, Captain Powers was interrogated and harassed by numerous Soviet secret police interrogation teams. And while he was not being otherwise brutalized, he was held in solitary confinement. And although weakened by lack of food and denial of sleep and mental anguish of constant interrogation, Captain Powers refused all attempts to glean from him sensitive information that would have proven harmful to the defense and the security of the United States. For his exceptional loyalty and sustained heroic performance of duty, Captain Powers was publicly recognized by the Central Intelligence Agency Director and also by the Senate Armed Services Committee. And I am honored, I am amazingly honored to add the Silver Star to these commendations and to express, on behalf of all airmen, past and present, our gratitude, our genuine gratitude to the Powers family. Our nation's Cold War victory owes to efforts of dedicated public servants and service members like Gary Powers, who made steady and incremental contributions that resulted, ladies and gentlemen, in a monumental outcome, and that was the dissolution of the Soviet Union. And to his son Gary and family members, and especially to Trey, I commend your resolve to have your father's heroic actions duly recognized. And I thank each of the Powers family members, both present here and those who could not make it today. Importantly, there is no doubt, y'all, none whatsoever, that your love and support strengthened him during those difficult hours and days of captivity. And so I think it's appropriate now, ladies and gentlemen, that we publish the orders for award of the Silver Star to Captain Francis Gary Powers. Please, let's proceed.
Ladies and gentlemen, General Schwartz will now present the Silver Star to Mr. Powers and Mrs. Berry on behalf of Captain Powers. Attention to orders. The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress July 9, 1918, awards the Silver Star to Captain Francis G. Powers. Captain Powers distinguished himself by gallantry in connection with military operations against an enemy of the United States from 1 May 1960 to 10 February 1962. During this period, while assigned to the Joint United States Air Force Central Intelligence Agency U-2 Reconnaissance Squadron Detachment 1010, Captain Powers was held captive in solitary confinement in the infamous Lubyanka prison, Moscow, in the former Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, after his U-2 aircraft had been shot down by a Soviet surface-to-air missile over enemy territory. For almost 107 days, Captain Powers was interrogated, harassed, and endured unmentionable hardships on a continuous basis by numerous top Soviet secret police interrogating teams. Although greatly weakened physically by the lack of food, denial of sleep, and the mental rigors of constant interrogation, Captain Powers steadfastly refused all attempts to give sensitive defense information or be exploited for propaganda purposes, resisting all Soviet efforts through cajolery, trickery, and threats of death to obtain the confessions they sought as part of the pretrial investigation. Captain Powers was subjected to an international trial and was sentenced to an additional 542 days of captivity in Vladimir prison before finally being released to United States control. As a result of his indomitable spirit, exceptional loyalty, and continuous heroic actions, Russian intelligence gained no vital information from him. For his sustained courage in an exceptionally hostile environment, Captain Powers was publicly recognized by the Director of the Central Intelligence Agency and the Senate Armed Services Committee. By his gallantry and devotion to duty in the dedication of his service to his country, Captain Powers has reflected great credit upon himself and the United States Air Force. Please be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, Captain Powers' son, Mr. Francis G. Powers, Jr., will now make remarks on behalf of the Powers family.
Well, thank you all very, very much for coming today. A big thank you to General Schwartz, his staff, members of the staff who helped us with the logistics for the ceremony, Denise Harris, Marin Barney, Neil Hinson, Matt Steins, and Clay Long. Without their help and support, we'd all be stuck out there at the Metro. Another big thank you to family and friends, my aunts who were able to make it, our cousins, my wife, my son, my sister, her family. It's just an honor and a privilege to be here to make these remarks on behalf of the family. Congressman Eric Cantor, another thank you to him. He helped to support us with this award ceremony and initial letters to start the process, as well as Goodrich ISR Systems and the Gateway Marriott for all of their help to help and support the family and friends who came in from all over the country. When I was growing up in Southern California, I knew that Dad had been shot down over the Soviet Union, imprisoned by the KGB, and ultimately exchanged for a Soviet spy. But as a kid, growing up in this family, I thought everybody's dad had done this. That perception changed on August 1st, 1977, when Dad died in a helicopter crash while working for NBC television. At that time, I was 12 years old, came home to a house full of people, informed my mom of the bad news. Lives were turned upside down. Very introverted throughout high school, became curious in college, started to do research. The research led me here to Virginia in 1992, settled in Fairfax, lived there for about 12, 13 years, then moved down to the Richmond area. All the time in Fairfax, my first few years, I started to give lectures to high school students here in the area about the U-2 incident and my father. 9 times out of 10, I'd walk into a classroom to give a lecture on the U-2 incident. I get blank stares from the students. They thought I was there to talk about the U-2 rock band. But part of that research that I was doing was to find out what took place with the U-2 incident. When I was growing up, I had heard all the misinformation, the disinformation, the rumors and speculation that he had defected, that he had landed the plane intact, that he had spilled his guts and told the Soviets everything he knew, or that he hadn't followed orders and committed suicide. So as a kid growing up with this image of Dad as to what he did, if he did the right thing or the wrong thing, took a little while to get used to. But through perseverance with family, my sister, my mom, we were able to overcome some of those hardships, deal with the press that wanted to ask questions, and with the general public who also had questions, which leads us to today. In 1998, there was a declassification conference that allowed the ball to get rolling. In May of 2000, as a result of that conference, Dad was posthumously awarded with the POW medal. Very high honor, very grateful to our nation for that. In 2011, I read an article about 2 other flyers who had received the Silver Star. After being shot down close to my father on July 1st of 60, imprisoned in Lubyanka prison at the same time my father was, and I wrote a letter to the Air Force to see if it had set precedence for my father. To my surprise and delight, less than a year goes by. December of 2011, we're notified by the Air Force that Dad will receive the Silver Star in a ceremony in 2012. So as a family, my sister, myself, my wife, my son, aunts and uncles, cousins, the Powers family is deeply grateful and deeply appreciative for the awarding of the Silver Star to my father. It goes to show that it's never too late to set the record straight. So thank you all very, very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today as we honor Captain Powers, a true hero who deserves the gratitude of the nation. We invite everyone to attend the reception immediately following in the back of the hall. Please rise for the playing of the Air Force song.
receiving line, and we can all congratulate the Powers family. Pardon me.